Ever stumble across something that just completely changes how you see the world? Well, get ready, because that's what we're diving into today. The 1775 Bible. And let me tell you, this is way more than just some old book. We're talking about power struggles, hidden spiritual ideas, the whole shebang.
It's like finding a lost piece of history.
Yeah.
Now, this 1775 Bible, it really makes you question everything you thought you knew about traditional Christianity.
Okay, so let's break this down. We're talking about an actual Bible printed in 1775, right? But it's not the exact same text you'd find in most churches today.
Exactly. And we're not just talking about a few different words here and there. The research suggests that entire teachings were removed. Teachings the church considered way too radical for the masses to know about.
Too radical, huh? Now you've got me hooked. What kind of ideas were they so afraid of?
Imagine a Bible that taught that every single person has this inherent spiritual potential inside them. Not some distant God, not the church as the middleman, but a direct connection to the divine that everyone has access to.
Wow, that's a far cry from the whole sinners in the hands of an angry God thing you usually hear about.
Right. And that's the heart of it, isn't it? If everyone believed they had this direct line to God, well, where does that leave the church? Their authority, their whole power structure, it all starts to crumble.
Control the information, control the people. It's a tale as old as time. But this inherent spiritual potential, what did the 1775 Bible actually say about it?
Well, complete copies are almost impossible to find these days.
Yep.
But from the fragments and historical records we do have, there's this recurring theme of personal enlightenment. Like, that's the key to unlocking that inner divinity.
So less about relying on priests and rituals, more about looking inward and cultivating your own connection.
Exactly. And it wasn't just implied either. This version of the Bible actually included texts, whole texts that were later completely removed that supported this idea.
Like what? Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff.
Well, one name that keeps popping up is Mary Magdalene.
I have a feeling there's more to her story than we usually hear.
You're picking up what we're putting down. From what we can gather, Mary Magdalene's writings, some of which may have been part of the 1775 Bible, really emphasize this idea of a deeply personal spiritual experience. Finding wisdom and enlightenment from within, that direct connection to the divine.
No wonder those in charge saw these teachings as a threat. They were promoting a whole different way of approaching spirituality.
And the plot thickens. Another text that seems to have been scrubbed from later versions, the Gospel of Thomas.
Another gospel. Oh boy, that's sure to ruffle some feathers. What's so special about this one?
The Gospel of Thomas, it kind of doubles down on what we've been talking about, that inner exploration. It paints this picture of Jesus not just as a savior figure, but as this guide who's encouraging people to realize that the kingdom of God is already within them.
So, a different take on Jesus' message, one that emphasizes personal spiritual authority over blindly following institutions.
You got it. And that, my friend, that directly challenged the powers that be. Imagine if everyone really believed in their own inherent connection to the divine.
I'd say the church's role would look a little different, wouldn't it?
Little different, yeah. Maybe less gatekeepers, more like
A guide among many paths.
there you go. Now that's a thought-provoking image, isn't it?
It really is. But it begs the question, if these teachings were so powerful, why go through all the trouble of hiding them in the first place?
It's a question for the ages, isn't it? And it goes deeper than just ripping out entire pages. It gets more subtle, more insidious. Remember how we were talking about that inherent spiritual potential thing and how it kind of threw a wrench in the whole power structure of the church?
Right, like if people believed they had that direct connection, they wouldn't need a mediator.
Exactly. And this is where things get really interesting. The sources we've been digging into, they suggest that even the language used to describe the divine might have been, well, tweaked a little to maintain control, like take the name Yahweh. It was pretty common in those earlier texts. It implied this close personal relationship with the divine.
I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, so over time, Yahweh kind of fades out, and you start seeing Lord more and more, which, let's be honest, has a totally different vibe. Hierarchy, obedience, the drill.
It's wild how one word can change the whole feeling, the whole meaning of something. It's like those subliminal messages advertisers use, Are there other examples of this kind of linguistic switcheroo?
Oh, there's more. Check this out. Elohim. Also super common in those earlier texts. It's plural, which opens up some really interesting possibilities.
Hold up, are we saying that the original concept of God might have been like more than one entity?
It's definitely something to think about, right?
Yeah.
At the very least, Elohim points to a way more complex, maybe even pluralistic understanding of the divine than what came later.
It's like they took this beautiful, intricate tapestry and just like simplified it down to one single color.
What a perfect analogy. And that simplification, that narrowing of the narrative, well, it kind of reinforces this idea, doesn't it? The idea that the church is the only authority on all things spiritual.
Because if people start exploring these different facets of the divine on their own, who knows what they might find? They might not need the church as the middleman anymore.
Bingo. But here's the thing. This whole idea of suppressing spiritual knowledge that empowers individuals, it's not just a Christianity thing. This pattern, it pops up all over history, across different cultures and beliefs.
Now that's an intriguing thought. Are there other traditions that faced something similar?
Absolutely. Take Buddha, for example. His teachings on mindfulness, inner transformation, self-awareness, they were radical for their time. He was basically saying, hey, enlightenment, it's not some gift from on high, you got to cultivate it from within. Challenging the status quo, big time.
So kind of like the message we see in the 1775 Bible, it's about taking ownership of your own spiritual journey.
You got it. And it's not just ancient history either. Think about someone like Nikola Tesla, a brilliant scientific mind, but also someone with deep spiritual insights.
Wait, Tesla, like the inventor, what's he got to do with all of this?
Well, for Tesla, the universe was basically all energy. And he believed that if we could understand and harness that energy, we could unlock this incredible potential within ourselves. He even talked about how our thoughts, our intentions can actually influence the world around us.
Okay, yeah, that does sound pretty in line with this idea of tapping into some inner divine power. So we've got Buddha, Tesla. Who else was pushing the boundaries of conventional spiritual thought?
Neville Goddard, this mystic dude, he was all about the power of imagination to shape our reality. Ring any bells?
It's like that saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. But Goddard was saying that our thoughts literally create our reality.
That was his whole deal. And more recently, people like Dr. Joe Dispenza, they've been building on this, exploring the science behind how our thoughts, our beliefs, even our emotions can affect our bodies and the world around us.
So this isn't just some woo-woo spiritual idea. There might be actual science to back it up. But what does it all mean for us right here, right now? We're not living in the 1700s. Why should we even care about a Bible from 1775?
The million-dollar question. It's about recognizing that this impulse to control information, especially when it comes to spirituality and self-empowerment, well, it's still alive and kicking.
So it's bigger than just one old book. It's about questioning the stories we're told, being open to different perspectives.
100%. When we understand how spiritual knowledge has been, let's say, curated throughout history, we can start to look at the information we're bombarded with today with a more critical eye. Who knows what other truths are out there waiting to be rediscovered?
This whole conversation has definitely given me a lot to chew on. But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's bring it back to a personal level. Let's say we accept that we do have this inherent spiritual potential, this untapped power within us. What do we do with it? How can we actually apply these teachings to our lives today?
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, hasn't it? Digging into this whole hidden history of the 1775 Bible and how those ideas have echoed through time. But you're right, the real question is, what do we do with all this? How do we take these ideas and actually put them into practice in our lives? If we buy into this whole inherent spiritual potential thing, how do we actually tap into it?
That's the million-dollar question, right? Where the rubber meets the road. Luckily, those sources we've been talking about, they give us a few hints. Remember how both the 1775 Bible and Mary Magdalene stuff really emphasize personal enlightenment?
Yeah, like it's not just about thinking happy thoughts, it's about actively searching for something deeper within. Exactly. And that's where things like meditation and mindfulness come in. Those practices are super important in Buddhist teachings too, you know? It's about creating space for that inner wisdom to come through.
So it's not just about finding a quiet corner and closing your eyes for a few minutes. It's about really tuning into what's going on inside.
You got it. It's like quieting all the noise of the outside world so you can finally hear that inner voice. And it goes beyond meditation too. It's about paying attention to our thoughts, our beliefs, all those patterns that we just do automatically without even thinking about them.
Because if we're really talking about shaping our own reality, we got to be aware of what we're creating unconsciously, right?
100%. And that's where someone like Dr. Joe Dispenza comes in. His whole thing is about how our minds and bodies are connected, how our thoughts and beliefs can actually affect our physical well-being.
Right. Which kind of brings us back to Tesla and his ideas about energy and frequency. If we can shift our internal state, change our own energy, it makes sense that we could affect the world around us too.
Exactly. It's all connected.
It's like all the pieces of the puzzle are starting to fit together. But this is where I always get tripped up. If we have all this power inside of us, why do we still have problems? Why isn't life just smooth sailing all the time?
That's the big mystery, isn't it? The one humans have been wrestling with forever. But I think what we've been talking about today offers a different way of looking at things. It's not about avoiding challenges altogether. It's about facing them with his deeper sense of strength and wisdom.
So less about wishing for a life without storms and more about learning how to weather those storms.
Exactly. It's about realizing that we have the power to choose how we respond to the ups and downs of life. We're not just victims of circumstance, we're active participants, co-creators, you could even say. And that, to me, is incredibly empowering.
It really is. It's a lot to process. You know, after spending all this time with the 1775 Bible, with all these stories of hidden knowledge, it makes you wonder, what else are we missing? What other possibilities open up when we start to question what we think we know and dig a little deeper?
And that's the beauty of it all, isn't it? Cultivating that sense of curiosity, never stopping asking questions, always peeling back another layer. You never know what you might find.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the mysterious world of the 1775 Bible. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring.
If you enjoyed this journey into the pages of the 1775 Bible, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps bring these timeless stories and ancient wisdom to a wider audience. Together, we can continue to explore the mysteries of our past, connect with deep spiritual truths, and share this knowledge with the world. Stay curious, stay inspired, and thank you for being part of this journey.